Breaking news, oh my goodness, Deebo Samuel requesting a trade from the 49ers, according to ESPN. Kind of thought this might be coming when he scrubbed his Twitter bio of 49ers mentions, like some other guys have done. Just not happy right now, and the word is it may not necessarily be about money at this point. Obviously, he lost his offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel, to the Miami Dolphins. Deebo, over 21 fantasy points per game last season in PPR. That was third best in the league among wide receivers, behind only Cooper Kupp and Davante Adams. Adams, one of those guys that Deebo might be looking at right now as a reason to get out of Dodge and get more money. Davante making about $28 million per year now with the Vegas Raiders. Let's bring in the mayor of Fantasyland, Jamey Eisenberg, here on HQ as Deebo Samuel requests a trade, according to ESPN. Jamey, what would be the best fit at this point for Deebo fantasy-wise?
You know, Chris, I think you obviously would like to see him go to a situation where there's going to be plenty of targets. And right now there's no better place than the Atlanta Falcons in terms of target opportunities. But clearly the quarterback situation isn't the best there. And he'd be going to a situation where he'd be playing sort of a similar role to what they had in a guy like him in Cordarrelle Patterson. So I don't know if there's a spot that's going to end up being a better place for him in terms of his fantasy value than just staying in San Francisco. I mean, let's just keep him there. Find a way to make this marriage work. You know, it's a little surprising to hear that he wants out if it's not money related. Understandably so. You see what these deals have been for these wide receivers, specifically the one you mentioned, Davante Adams. Let's not forget about Tyreek Hill. If he can end up in Kansas City, that would be fun as well. The Jets seem like a logical landing spot, just knowing that they've tried to get guys, including the coaching staff there with Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur. They know what Deebo Samuel is capable of doing, having been there with him 2 years ago. So that's a place you could see him ending up. But I don't see him getting better going to a different situation unless the quarterback scenario is just that much better. So he doesn't really need it, though, because of what he's going to do as a rusher out of the backfield. So that's a big part of, obviously, what Deebo Samuel does.
And still huge question marks here all over the place. 1, do they trade him? 2, where would he go? 3, what's going on with the 49ers? Because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on that roster. They haven't been able to unload him. Maybe he's still going to play some at the quarterback position, but we've been under the impression it's going to be Trey Lance. Where are we at with the 49ers right now, specifically at quarterback?
Well, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder surgery did not help their trade scenario for him. You know, so had he not had this, potential, surgery pop up, he probably would have been dealt, along the lines of what we saw when Russell Wilson was on the move, Deshaun Watson on the move, these other quarterbacks that were certainly in play. And clearly, a team like Carolina, because I don't think they're going to send him to Seattle. So Carolina's probably the most likely landing spot, unless he's just going to be sent to somewhere where he'll have to be a backup, a la what Ryan Tannehill went through a couple of years ago, where he had to sit behind Marcus Mariota and then get the chance to start when Mariota got hurt and then eventually struggled. So that could be the path that happens for Jimmy Garoppolo with a certain team. But in terms of where they're at right now, you got to figure that they were hoping Deebo Samuel was going to be part of the mix. I'm actually was in the middle as this news was breaking, writing a story about Trey Sermon, because I spent some time talking to Sermon. He trains in Fort Lauderdale, about his outlook for the upcoming year. And he was talking about Deebo and talking about competing with Elijah Mitchell and the outlooks for Trey Lance. This is a team that has a lot of young potential, along with some good proven stars like Deebo Samuel, like George Kittle. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk turned things around last season in the middle of the year. But the 49ers have a good offensive line, a good coaching staff, and a defense that has them ready to compete. And so is Trey Lance that guy? I would expect him to be in the mix, to be one of the next up-and-coming young quarterbacks, but clearly they got to move on from Garoppolo. So a lot still to be determined with this 49ers offseason, and we know the NFL draft right around the corner, so we'll see if some moves are going to happen then.
We saw the numbers from last season. He was number 3 among wide receivers in PPR points per game. I think it was 21.3 per game. Going into this season, ranked as the number 8 wide receiver in PPR. What's the reason that 8 number doesn't match the 3 number from last year?
Well, I think you're counting on a better season for Justin Jefferson with the new coaching staff there in Minnesota. Obviously, Jamar Chase continuing to take the next step. And then it's a matter of, at least for me, how do you feel about Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill in comparison to Deebo Samuel? I think Adams is still in a little bit of a better spot as a receiver. Deebo, the concern would be is Trey Lance going to enhance his ability as a pass catcher? Because we know that Trey Lance is going to run a little bit more than Jimmy Garoppolo did. So it's a very bunched up group. I like CeeDee Lamb taking a step forward without Amari Cooper there. I think he's going to be special in his 3rd season. A.J. Brown, another guy that we have to keep an eye on in terms of his contract situation and maybe wanting out of Tennessee as well. We know that when the news broke last week in terms of the 3 guys, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, all unhappy with their contract situations. So do we have to worry about Brown and McLaurin next? But I do like A.J. Brown's situation a little bit better than Deebo's as well. But he's a second-round pick. You know, a lot of these guys are going to go in the second round because of how running backs go in the first round. So Deebo Samuel, if he stays in San Francisco, they get this worked out, he'll be a second-round pick. If he goes somewhere else, depending on that destination, we could see him fall to maybe round 3 or round 4, if in fact it's not going to be a better spot for him with a better opportunity to continue to be part of the backfield there. So a lot of still moving parts with those receiving core, with the receivers for fantasy managers going into the start of the 2022 campaign.
Deebo Samuel requesting a trade. The draft is only 8 days away. The first round a week from Thursday. Jamey Eisenberg with us here on HQ. You can hear him on Fantasy Football Today. Podcast dropping shortly, I'm sure, with even more news among wide receivers in the NFL who have either scrubbed their social media page of team references or have flat out demanded a trade, as ESPN is reporting Deebo Samuel has done.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.